Welcome to another edition of Play It Through, and this time around it's Batman, brought to us by Sunsoft. Now, Sunsoft also did Blaster Master, Fester's Quest, and Gremlins 2, and they were one of my personal favorite companies of the 8-bit era. Now, even though Fester's Quest is a hit-or-miss game, I think most of the other Sunsoft games that came out in the 8-bit era were great games, including this one. This is one of my all-time favorite games, and it's one of those games that as a kid I used to play it all the time. And even though it has a pretty high difficulty, and most of the time I wouldn't make it past the third, fourth, and especially the fifth level, it didn't matter. I would still pick it up and play it on a consistent basis. It's one of those games that will always be infamous with my childhood. Now, in this game, it has some of my favorite jumping mechanics of all time in a video game, just being able to jump from wall to wall. Now, it's not something necessarily you associate with Batman. That would be maybe more of a Spider-Man trait, but it doesn't matter. It's a hell of a lot of fun to play. And so let's just get on with it with the actual gameplay of Batman. Now, one of the few negative things I actually can say about this game is that it is pretty short, but that's probably attributed to the fact that it was a licensed game based on the 1989 Batman movie, so it was probably rushed in development, so they probably didn't have a whole lot of time to literally flesh out the length of the game. But even with that, and the difficulty, but I really don't attribute that to being a negative thing necessarily. But it's still a great game, as you see the great animation of the Batmobile driving in and Batman jumping out, very nicely done. Now here we go with Stage 1-1. You can hear the great Batman Stage 1 music playing in the background. We'll also hear the song again later on in Stage number 5. But absolute brilliant soundtrack composed by the Sunsoft music crew, just like they did for all the games. Now the basic, of course, controls for this game is Batman, of course, can jump easily enough, right? He also can punch, but also by pressing start, you can change from 1 to 3 weapons. So you collect the different weapons and you can use them. Of course, you have your Batarang. You also have the missile, and you have another weapon that basically is a spread shot that you shoot out, and it becomes 3, and goes as just gadgets that Batman would use. And they can be used quite to your advantage depending upon certain enemies. Usually the Batarang is one of the better weapons to use against most enemies because of its length, and it also can hit an enemy more than once if you time it correctly while it's going through them. It actually will hit them more than once, sometimes 2 or 3 times. You can get in with just using one Batarang. Now, as I'm jumping through here, I'm going to try not to use too many of the alternate weapons. I'm going to try to use Batman's fist to the fullness I can. But the Batarang is very useful against, especially like those flying enemies right there. Usually 1 or 2 Batarangs will take them out. Of course, if this is one of those games that if you have a turbo controller, it's probably to your benefit to use it in certain parts. I mean, it's not like amazing to use or anything, but it definitely does help at some parts. As I fall all the way down, and I always love that ninja enemy. He takes a whole lot of hits to just kill him, but he's just one of the funnier, just random enemies lurking in this game. He just kind of stands there around the corner. Now here we go with the first boss here, who flies back and forth and then dives at us. He's actually really not that challenging to dodge his moves, and as long as you stay on the left or far right side, you'll be able to easily dodge his spread shot. Whenever he comes down, I like to throw a Batarang in his face in order to do damage. Also, you can just time the punches right and hit him with them as well. But after only a few hits, he's taken care of. And now we get to see the Batmobile driving again, as we're going to be heading into level 2 as we are breaking in. I just gotta love that animation of the breaking open the shutter to enter the building. And here we go at stage 2. Now, even though this game is only 5 stages long, they progressively get longer. Seemingly, the first stage is actually really short in comparison to some of the longer ones. Plus, some of the later stages also have some of the really tough jumping area. This is an area coming up later in the game where it's like almost impossible to make it through without taking at least some damage. I think it's really become infamous from this game. Just only like extreme patience and great skill actually can get through the area without getting hurt. So I'm just saying right now I will end up taking damage in order to get past that area. And I'm using my my bullets there, my missiles. They look like, just look like you Batman shooting missiles or whatever. but I will use them to my advantage. And you just saw right there, I was able to hang onto the side with my jumping ability, and then spring myself off of it to make through gaps. And I will be using it much more in some of these later parts coming up later in the game. I will be using that jump even more so. Like, I can also use it like right there. If I wanted to, I could have bypassed a little bit of an area, but I'll just go up here and go this way. Yeah, it would have only saved like 1 or 2 seconds if I would have been able to make the jump. And springing off the wall. So that's just one of those things I really like about this game, is that wall springing ability. If they had used, like I said earlier, you think about jumping with hanging onto walls, it would be more of a Spider-Man thing, but it works extremely well in this game. It just makes this game so much fun to just jump around and seeing what jumps you can bypass, what things you can get under, and you have to really use it to your advantage in order to get around areas like this whole little gauntlet style area here. In order to get past it, you have to master the wall jump, which, like I said, it's just one of those more unique gameplay elements that makes this game an above average action game on the 8-bit systems, because there was just so many games where it just your basic jump and then your attacks, and that was all they had to offer. But at least this game offered this great jumping mechanics as well as being able to change weapons, so a lot of pluses there, as we are now in stage 2-3. So yeah, and now I'm coming down here watching out for the exploding landmines that'll hit me, and you basically have only about 6 or 7 different types of enemies to the game, which is kind of a downer, but it really doesn't matter because they use them in strategic places to use them the best. Like those flamethrower guys are always going to be mainly on ledges that you're about to jump to, so you have to time your jumps correctly in order to make it to the ledge without taking damage from the flamethrower. Now, if you accidentally if you're in mid-jump and get hit, you do end up stopping in mid-jump sometimes, so you'll just end up coming crashing back down to the platform below you. So it really comes down to timing in order to get past certain areas without taking damage, or else you end up falling and whatever. So that adds even more challenge to the already pretty challenging jumping. Okay, here we go with the second boss, and this is actually like a 3-part boss. We start off by taking out this 2-gun thing on the right, and now we're going to jump up through the side here and work my way up this conveyor belt. And I'm going to pull up my batarangs real quick to take out the second part. And now here we go with the third part on the right, which we are opened up after taking out the other ones. I'm going to jump up and punch it a bunch of times. After only a few hits, it's going to be taken care of. And the second level is now complete, as we see the Joker, and quotes here from the film. And now we go to stage 3-1, and it introduces one of my least favorite enemies in the game. Actually, my least favorite enemies. These giant football. I call them linebacker, half football linebacker, half frog. They just hop around ridiculously, and they just are sometimes relentless. I always suggest killing them as soon as you see them before they gang up on you. Because if you try to just run past them, sometimes they'll just continue to follow you relentlessly, and you'll never get away, and they'll end up just jumping on your head and taking you out. The good news is, if you just saw right there, what I was able to do is sometimes you can get them stuck in a loop where they just keep jumping straight up in the air, and if you can hit them with one of your projectile weapons, you can use that to your advantage, so you don't have to get too close in order to kill them. Okay, and that's going to complete 3-1, and now here we go with 3-2, which looks very similar to 3-1, really not much of a difference, except we're heading down this very large river of very disgusting green water, and jump over and fall down here, and then we're going to have to deal with more of the linebacker frogs, trying to take them out, and we're going to have another one right up here. This game really comes down to becoming good at it, is mastering the jump, and learning certain enemy placements. Once those two things are learned, the game actually is pretty easy. The bosses overall, even for a Sunsoft game, because Sunsoft I think did a pretty good job at making challenging bosses in video games. But even for Sunsoft, the bosses really aren't too bad. Most of them have an easy pattern to learn, or at least an area where you can stand, so you won't take any damage. It's one of those free areas, so you don't take any damage. So they're not too bad. it just really comes down to the levels are more challenging than the bosses end up being. Which I think is overall, I think the opposite for most Sunsoft titles. At least I think so. With Blaster Master, I think the bosses, unless you spammed some of the glitches in Blaster Master, I think some of the bosses were pretty challenging in that. Same thing goes for Fester's Quest. And even Journey to Silius, another Sunsoft title, which, even though that was supposed to be, I think, the first movie Terminator game, but that ended up being a great title as well. But I'm working my way up these random cliffs, and they, like I said, they do a really good job at strategically placing all the enemies in places, to be an annoyance, number one, but you have to know what's ahead before you, look before you leap, is especially correct for this game. And now I'm working my way up this long set of pipes. Like I said, never knew Batman can jump this well, but really not complaining about it. Watch out for the spinning thing so I don't take any damage from those gears. Trying to get up. There we go, and just over it. Without taking any damage, and springing my way back and forth. Watch out for another one of the flamethrower guys. There we go, and take him out. And continuing up. Watch out for those revolving gears again, because I will take damage from them. If I accidentally land on top of one. After a very long journey up, watch out for another one of these tanks, which is pretty easy to deal with. They're not too challenging to dodge their bullet, and after only a few shots, they're taken care of. Okay. And here we go with the worst boss in the game. Now this boss, I'm going to tell you right now, is going to take me a little bit in order to beat. And I have really like two strategies, two parts to work with him. You can use, you can try to glitch him like I was doing there to get him to keep jumping, facing the same wall. If you get him when he's facing the right or left wall, where the wall he's standing close to, he'll just jump straight up in the air and fall right back down, and you can get a good hit on him. But also, you can just keep jumping back and forth between the two platforms and time your shots in order to do damage to him. Now I'm trying to get him stuck here and hit him, and this is going to really take a long time, because the only other strategy, if you have full health, you can just go running into him and just keep punching him, especially with like a turbo or whatever button, and you'll be able to probably kill him before you run out of health. The thing is, I went into the battle, unfortunately, with only, 4 hits left, so there was probably going to be no way I was going to be able to take him out with only a little bit of health if I just ran in and charged right at him. So I have to just wait my time and try to manipulate him to at least be able to do as many shots as possible. Wait for him to jump. There we go, another shot. I'll probably end up running out of my shots before this battle's over with. So it's a pretty good amount of hits it takes to finally kill this guy. Like I said, he's probably the longest and most annoying and worst boss in this game. And he really is a pain in the butt if you try to fight him head on, but he's really not that challenging if you learn this strategy. It's just time consuming, which sometimes is just the worst. And if you accidentally fall down, I mean, just climb your way back up. Sometimes you'll probably take at least 1 damage like I did, unfortunately, there. But it's not, it wasn't too bad just taking the 1 damage. As I'm slowly depleting my resources here of weapons, like I said was going to happen, and just screw it. I'll just go to this strategy. I think this works a little bit better. Just timing my shots to hit him when he jumps up, and just keep jumping back and forth. Like I said, whatever way works best is, the way to go. Now that I've ran out of weapons, though, now I gotta time my punches to hit him right in the head as he jumps back and forth. Which, if you time it correctly... Another thing about this game, which I hadn't mentioned previously, is if you hit an enemy and they're flashing, you can time it so that even though they ran through you, they end up not doing any damage to you. It's just one of those things to manipulate the game so you can actually do a lot of damage. That's going to be especially useful when we get to the Joker, the final boss of the game. We'll actually be using that a lot, hitting him so that when he runs through me or shoots me, he ends up not doing any damage to me. Now here we go at stage 4, and we start off with more of the random linebacker frog guys, which are just kicking my butt right off the start here. And you also got to deal with those things that drop the little robots from the up there as well. This is annoying as all heck. Wait for the flamethrower guy. go. Now jump up and punch him in the face and take him out. I gotta build up my supply real quick of all my projectiles because I used so many of them during the last boss battles. We see the Joker talking on the monitors in an internal loop there in the background. This game really, it came out in 1989, so, the NES was pretty well known at that point, but I still think the game looks great, sounds great, gameplay's great. One of the better overall titles on the NES. Definitely one of the better licensed games. I mean, we don't get licensed movie games like this, and especially today. We just don't get them anymore. No developer wants to put any time whatsoever into a licensed game, but I think I've ran on that way too much, and I'll probably continue to rant on it because I'll be doing licensed games throughout the rest of the month of July for my runs, so... But at least some of the licensed games that I chose really aren't bad. The only ones I chose that were really awful were the Back to the Future games, which were made by the worst company that made video games in the 8-bit era, which was LJN and a developer known as Beam Software. They just made some of the worst titles that ever came out. Okay, continuing over, gotta make sure I don't hit the ground there because of all the gears moving up and down. Punching that guy and continuing on, drop down. There's going to be another flamethrower guy over here. I'm just going to jump up and shoot him before jumping over the gears. And continuing over, I'm going to... That stupid one of those mine-dropping robot things is over there, as you already saw. Which is a little bit of annoyance, especially considering I try to make this jump over without getting hit. And there we go. And jump up and spring over again, not getting hit. Kill a little, moving robots on the ground. And now we're in the next stage, 4-2. Gotta watch out for the random, not only robots, but the lightning beams that keep going back and forth. Just time it so that I don't end up getting shocked when I jump through. And continuing on to the right, now we got fire to deal with. We've already had to deal with random, mechanical gears moving and weird poisonous liquid. We now have fire to deal with. It's already bad enough we have flamethrower guys, but we just have fire burning on the bottom there, just non-stop fire. No real reason. Continuing on past the little robot guy, shooting him before I make the jump. Like I said, it's always good to know what's ahead of you. Now this part's actually pretty challenging, timing your jumps so that you make it through these gears without getting hit by the lightning, as well as dealing with the other little robots and stuff on the platforms. The platforms, of course, on the bottom, the little moving already conveyor belts are actually, since they're so small, they're really a pain in the butt to maneuver around, but it ends up just making for great gameplay, great platforming. And kill that guy and head back up, take out this little robot with a punch. And for these upcoming tanks, I really just suggest staying on the bottom step here and jumping and shooting after each fire. Just timing your shots correctly so that you end up not taking any damage. Since I'm so low on health already anyway, it'll just end up being to my advantage, not taking the extra unnecessary damage. So I only have 2 hits left. Once again, I'm going to repeat the same process I did on that first tank down there. I'm just going to time my jumps to get past the fire and shoot him when I can. There we go, he's taken care of. I accidentally got hit, but I gained a heart. Take out the little robot there. He ends up dropping missiles. Jump up and take out that guy. Oh good, he actually gave me some health. So I actually have gained a little bit of health. There we go, another health. Thank God, because I was running really low there. Okay, watch out now for these dropping robot mines, and watch out. Jump. Another one of the random robots, and stupid robot dropping mine things, or whatever they're called. I don't even know what they are. Okay, continuing on, watch out for that guy. Okay, there's the exit. And here we go with boss number 4. These 2 moving things will shoot at you whenever they're on line of sight with you. So whenever they see you, basically, they're going to fire at you. And since the only path they can't travel down is the middle tiny path, I'm going to use that completely to my advantage. And I'm going to jump up and down between them and shoot them when I can with the batarangs. I find it to be one of the more useful strategies in order to take out these 2 robots. Now they have individual health meters, so when you take one out, the other one gets ticked off and goes into a second phase. So that is something to watch out for, so I try to equal out my damage equally between them, just to make it a little bit easier when it comes down to only one of the robots left. Okay, waiting for the fire, go up, and jump over the winding gears. Of course, if I land on any of these gears at any point, I do take damage, so that just so everyone knows, in case you didn't already. And here we go, the beginning of the fun. Just having jumps with flamethrower guys at the top of them, and almost no way to hit them without landing on the same platform as them. Now, of course, if you're really good at the jumping, you can time it so you actually can end up hitting the flamethrower guy before you end up going up on the platform. Or you can also time it to manipulate that whole thing, like I said, where if you hit an enemy at the right point and then go through them, you end up not taking any damage from them. But here we go with the long gauntlet that is the harder part of the game, as I just accidentally fell in without making the jump. You actually can do that jump without falling in there. Take out this thing, and pull out my gun real quick and shoot him from across the way so I don't have to deal with him. Trying to get up here, I only have 2 more hits left, so I gotta be careful about taking any unnecessary risk. Jump across. Like I said, this is one of the hardest areas probably in 8-bit gaming that I really remember. As a kid, I used to almost get always to this part and end up dying as I'm trying to manipulate it and hit that guy before I came up here. Come over and up, and now I'm just going to continue up, watch out for the little robot on the platform, and try to get up here. There we go. Okay, that part's taken care of. Now I'm going to spend time my jumps to take out the flamethrowing guy, grab a heart before reaching the end. Okay, here we go with the final boss battles. We have to deal with Shredder here first, and he ends up being pretty easy to take care of, because he just fires the big bullet at us. He also will do a random, super, anime style, Dragon Ball Z fighting thing at us. Lots of fast kicks and punches. But if you're ducking in front of it, you end up not getting hit by it. But as long as you stay on the left side here and just keep jumping and firing batarangs when you can, he ends up being a piece of cake. And definitely just the hardest part is just timing your jumps and not getting bored to death by doing the same thing until he's taken care of. And waiting and waiting and waiting. He's going to jump back over here, and I hit him some more. Shredder is almost taken care of here. If he was Super Shredder, he may have an actual different move, but as far as I know, he's just a regular Shredder here. And continuing. Like I said, there we go, he's done. After he's taken care of, we get the final cutscene here, as we have the Joker welcoming us to the final boss battle. And here we go, the final boss battle with Joker. Now, he fires bullets as well as he summons lightning. But the thing about it is, if you time it correctly, you can step in between the lightning, as well as when he runs past me, if I time my punches, he'll just run right through me and not do any damage. Like you've seen, I've been able to accomplish it a couple of times. Like right there. If you time it correctly, will not end up hitting you. It's really not too challenging once you've learned how to dodge the lightning and also learn to manipulate that whole punching thing. You also can jump over him when he runs by you, but I find just, keep charging him with punches and taking the little bit of damage that you end up taking is the best strategy to deal with him. Once you punch the Joker enough in the face, he ends up falling over done, and the game is complete. Here we go with the actual ending of the game. Batman finally gets to confront Joker for killing his parents and ending this whole, and actually beginning the whole Batman thing. And flings Joker out of the building, and we get to see Joker fall to his very violent death out of the top here and crashes to the ground. Actually really nicely done 8-bit style things here. Done kind of like a movie frame style thing. Really actually pretty well done. Zooms in on the Joker body, and we still see that he is still smiling even though he's been thrown out of the building and crashed into the concrete. Because no matter what, he can never stop smiling. The smile fades away, and now here we go with the ending credits for Batman here on the NES. The great team over at Sunsoft and all the members of the Sunsoft team that got to work on these great games. So that is Batman on the NES. In a couple days I'll be starting Batman Return of the Joker which is the sequel to this game, but of course is not based on any of the